Good morning and welcome to Hidden Manna Revealed. My name is Denise and we're going to be talking about shortcuts today. And we're going to be starting in the book of Genesis in chapter 16 verses 1 through 3. But before we go there, I'd just like to talk about shortcuts for a minute. Because the Lord, I believe, gave me this message through something my husband and I tried to do concerning an oil burner of all things. And so it's just wonderful the way that the Lord can teach you through anything. He can teach you through the simplest things of trying to purchase an oil burner, through something you see on television, through many other avenues. And so it's just wonderful. If you have the Word of God in your heart, you know, it said in the Bible, I hid the Word of God in my heart that I might not sin against you. And if you have the Word of God in your heart, the Lord can take almost any situation and show you something from the Scriptures to, you know, follow along, just like Jesus taught from the plowing and the sowing and the reaping. And so, first of all, shortcuts are not always a bad thing. You know, today we have Google Maps, and you can type in the shortest route or the less traffic, you know, route, or many other things. You know, you can get a shortcut to where you're going, and that's not a bad thing. It can save you time, save you money, gasoline. And then on your computer, you have shortcuts. I have shortcuts to my videos, shortcuts to my pictures, you know, shortcuts on everything nowadays. And, you know, it says all these fast food restaurants, you know, it says, you know, they'll get it to you as fast as they can. You order and you just drive up and pick it right up. So a lot of times shortcuts are not necessarily bad, but when you're dealing with God and His Word and obedience, shortcuts can prove to be very bad for you. They can even prove to be deadly, as we're going to see in some of. Well, of course, I purchased it, brought it home. It was made of stone, so I thought, well, that's fine, you know. And their oil was a lot cheaper, and I found out later that's because it wasn't pure oil. It had our scriptures before we're through today. So, according to my oil burner story, as I mentioned earlier, my husband and I were walking through the mall, and we smelled this wonderful smell coming out of the store, and we thought, what is that? And so we walked in there, and sure enough, they had a little oil burner, and it was metal, and they had little drops you put in it. But it was a little expensive. The oil burner was nice, but it was a little expensive, and the oil they sold was a little expensive. So we thought, well, we better not buy that. So lo and behold, I was in a discount store, and what did I see? An oil burner for less money. Well, of course, I purchased it, brought it home. It was made of stone, so I thought, well, that's fine, you know. And their oil was a lot cheaper, and I found out later that's because it wasn't pure oil. It had alcohol in it, which burns a lot faster, evaporates a lot faster. So I get it home, and it smelled great at first, and then after it burned for a while on that stone, it started having a burnt smell. So I tried all kinds of things trying to get it to smell like the one in the store that I couldn't buy because it was too expensive. I tried to take a shortcut. But it didn't end there. And so anyway, long story short, I decided that one wasn't so wonderful. So I was in the store and I saw a glass one, and I said, you know, glass would not smell like stone when it got burnt. It would be like the metal one I saw at the goods store. And so once again, I was in the same discount store. I purchased the glass one, and I thought, oh my goodness, it was so cheap. It was even more cheap than the stone one. And so I took it to the counter and made the little checker ring it up first to make sure it was really that cheap, because I couldn't believe my eyes. I thought, oh my goodness, what a bargain. So sure enough, it really was that cheap, so I purchased it and brought it home, and I took my stone one upstairs and lit my little glass one, and it smelled so much better. No burnt smell or anything. But one day when I wasn't looking, I heard a loud crack and crash. Lo and behold, my glass oil burner broke, and the oil went everywhere, and the glass went everywhere. So I had another disaster on my hands, and so I said all that to say we were trying to take a shortcut. I wound up with 2 oil burners that I couldn't use, a big mess, and a lot of, you know, and I still don't have an oil burner. I'm still going to have to save up the money and go buy the one I want. So that's what happens when we try to take a shortcut with the Word of God. When we try to get God's promises in our life without obeying God's principles. My husband said he was on a web page the other day, and it said this guy was so proud of himself. He said he had spirituality without religion. And my husband began to say, when he pondered that, he thought, well, you know, that's That's wanting God without wanting God's rules. We want God, we want spirituality, we want power in prayer, we want to see the supernatural, but we don't want to obey the word of the Lord. And so you end up with a broken life, a big mess, a big stink, and you still don't have God. And that's kind of how my oil burner story got thrown into this mix. So now we will start in Genesis 16, verses 1 through 3. Because God had given Abraham and Sarah a promise, and they waited a long time, and they prayed a long time, but then it never came to pass in their mind in the proper time. So they decided to take a shortcut. It says, now Sarah, Abram's wife, his name wasn't Abraham yet, it was Abram. Now Sarah, Abram's wife, bare him no children, and she had a handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. And Sarah said unto Abraham, behold now, the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go in unto my maid, it may be that I may obtain children by her. And Abram hearkened to the voice of Sarai. You know, sometimes in the Bible, the Lord told Abraham to hearken to the voice of his wife. But then on the other hand, there are times when, being the head of the home, you're not supposed to hearken to the voice of your wife, especially if she's telling you to take a shortcut. And so you go to verse 3, and it says, and Sarah, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her handmaid, the Egyptian, after Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to her husband, and Abraham, to be his wife. And of course, in verse 4, it says, he went into Hagar, she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. So they did the shortcut way, and they got the results. And they're still paying for those results today over in Israel. That is why they have non-stop fighting over there, because the people that were born of Hagar and the people that were born of the promised child are still fighting today, and will be fighting until Jesus comes back and puts a stop to it. And that's another